Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Shop Wayfair's Black Friday in July. From July 26th through 29th, save up to 80% off everything home. Plus, flash deals you don't want to miss. Head to wayfair.com to start shopping our lowest prices of the summer.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council. Hello and welcome to Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations. Dermot, do you feel, having been at home for, 2 months now?
Yeah.
And with a couple of months ahead, do you feel that you've been nurtured by this time at home?
Definitely. Oh, yeah. I think there's like I feel like I'm one or the other. Like, I feel like there's a version of me that could get way too comfortable. And, because I feel like I'm almost shedding the last 7 years. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm like, okay, great. And I'm not trying to have some mad change where I don't, like, I'm not, like it'll be all right. But I kind of, I feel like in my head, I'm kind of like, okay, that happened. It was beautiful. Lots of great things happened. But now I'd like to be like this. I'm not talking creatively. I mean, like in terms of who I am as a person. I think I meet too many artists on the road who are kind of like, yeah, make my album in my sitting room. And I'm kind of like, oh, I would like that, And you kind of, I think that's the beauty of bumping into people on the road. You kind of hear things and you kind of, oh, I wouldn't mind doing that, or I'd hate to do that, or like you learn things about. You're kind of learning on the job constantly. There's no one being like, hey, you don't have to do this thing because they'll ask you again next year. It's like, you don't know. So you're kind of just trying your best. And so your work rate, everything you apply to your career is just based off who you are as a person. And with music, it comes with a lot of like insecurity and stuff. You're like, I have to do this because they might go get someone else. All that kind of stuff. So I think this time at home will help me kind of reset and hopefully take stock of what I've achieved and put me in a more comfortable place. Yeah.
What's your own fitness regime, Catherine? Because you're such an advocate for health and well-being.
Well, and funny, any of my friends will tell you, on a Friday and a Saturday, I'm opening the bottle of wine, I have the cheese board out.
80-20, isn't it?
Absolutely, we'd hoard at the takeaway, we have the pizza, and we do believe in, our treat nights with the girls. Like during the week, I would try and, eat as healthy as I can. I would always try and make dinners for them. My mom was a great cook, so that was always the case in our house as well. And then I like to run, so I'm probably out 3 times a week. I do Pilates, reformer Pilates. And I'd kind of, I'd in terms of classes, I would have a lot of my own equipment at home that I would do, just my own bits and bobs. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not sweating bullets for 7 days a week. Do you know what I mean? And that's not what it's about. It is about movement. I have 2 dogs. They're walked every day. And so it's, like exercise doesn't have to be, and I think this is the message as well, it doesn't have to be torture. I mean, I know it because with my own business, with Pure Results, and we run fitness and wellness retreats. During COVID, we just moved everything in 2 days onto a Facebook page, and we had 800 people working out, and we were jumping up and down, and we were doing our exercises, and we were doing our, and I was doing kind of sit back Sunday podcast things where I'm chatting to all sorts of people, trying to keep a sense of community going. And people just they flocked to it because it was that sense of having a place to belong, having a feeling of belonging. And then after kind of a year or 2 years, if I never saw another, online workout video again, I was like, somebody get me out. I need to see people. I need real people. I can't look at a screen anymore. I need to get back to the gym. I need to get back to classes. I need to be with people, and I'm somebody who, I love people. And my husband is the same. He's a real social butterfly as well. So for us, it was hard,
When electricity came in, it made a huge difference to the way people lived, because, you were able eventually to have fridges and washing machines, and the island people refused electricity. I think their thinking was that it would corrupt the young people if they got television.
My grandfather in County Roscommon refused the electricity coming down his road. He did. Yeah. And his argument was that it was the devil's own cursed instrument and it would never catch on.
Well, there you
that
are,
was his view.
It's a bit like the Ballygowan water.
Yeah, exactly. So my poor granny, she saw all the bits and pieces of the things that were changed by electricity in the neighbours' houses, but she never had it.
No.
Not to the day she died.
So I think that's what made the island... that everybody left. And 1975-6, I came in from school one day, and because the young people had left, there was 2 elderly families who would go back for the summer, but they would come out in the winter, and then eventually they were finished. They couldn't survive without the young people, and they were leaving. And I remember coming in from school, and my mother was in tears, and she had this piece of paper, and she said to me, and this sticks with me, and the way she expressed what was happening. She didn't say there would be nobody on the island tonight. She says, this is the first night there'll be no step on the island.
Oh. She was a poet.
Can you hear the step?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Just the sound. And there was a very distinctive sound, because I remember when I would be on it, all the roads were gravel, and the men would be going to fish in the morning, and they would have the Wellington boots on, and the sound of the boots on the gravel,
which is a lovely
was
sound.
A different sound to a shoe or on a cement street. And she's handed me this bit of paper with this poem called My Lovely Island Home. And she had it from 75. And when I was making an album of songs that I'd been involved in writing at the end of the 90s, I said to my mother, I says, Mum, I think we might look at your poem to see what we make it.
That?
Oh, she was thrilled.
She was thrilled.
She was thrilled. And even I sang at this last tour, and I said, in all the places, and we were in Sydney Opera House, and I said, my mother, when I finished it, I said she would be delighted to know her song was sung on the Sydney Opera House. And do you know, this will never end, the people left Owie, and they left the plates and cups and the dresser. The chair sat there with the cushion on it, and the clock was on the wall, and in their hearts they were coming back.
But they never got back.
But they did. The houses fell into disrepair, and about 20 years ago, all the descendants of the people in Owie went back, and almost all of the homes are renovated to their former glory. There's about 6 homes left still to be done.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I really loved history and kind of the history of politics as well, and I just really liked debating. And I think after the Young Social Innovators, I kind of had this thing where I was like, maybe I want to kind of be an advocate for human rights or something like that, because that's kind of where our project was going. And then I went to college and went, no. Not for me, because I really loved history, but then I think maybe the politics we were studying wasn't... I love Irish politics, but then we were studying like international politics, and it was at the time Obama was being elected, and we weren't doing anything about that. And I just felt like my love for it was kind of going. And I remember going to debating in college, and I was like, oh, but also I had started modelling, so I feel like maybe my confidence was getting knocked slightly. So I felt like I could never really stand up for myself, or, I kind of became very non-confrontational. I'd just be like, oh, okay. I kind of lost my voice a little bit. But now I would never. I think now, if you look at politicians, they get so much abuse.
And that's social media as well, isn't it?
You can never make anyone happy, but people just will hold you to account to one small bad thing you did against the 99% of other good things you did.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely, you're giving up your life.
I really enjoyed your company on Sleeping a Man, and also here in lovely Allenwood, County Kildare.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Thank you also for the cookies.
I know,
they
the smell from here
delicious.
is unreal. I'm getting the lovely whiff of the orange from here.
And what did you say? 100 grams of sugar.
100 grams of sugar, about 270 to 80 of butter, vegan butter or normal butter, and 300 grams of plain flour. And a little bit of vanilla extract, the fancy one, not the non-fancy one, because it's for you guys after all. And mix that together and then just baked it for about 15 minutes at 180 degrees. They came out nice and golden. Straight away I drizzled over chocolate, grated orange zest, some crunched up roasted hazelnuts and sea salt, and just let them cool, let them set.
We'll have to put a picture of them up on our page to go with the recipe.
They are phenomenal. Thank you.
The founder of the Ford factories, Henry Ford, his own grandson rather, told me this because I looked after him in Cork for a flying visit for 24 hours. I had the most lovely day with an extraordinary man. And he told me before he left, he said, Noel, he says, interesting, we're talking about manners and that. He said, my grandfather, when he was seeking senior executives, he would sort of end up with the last pick of the bunch, maybe 4, maybe 6 people. He would invite them to lunch or dinner, and he would observe their ability to engage in conversation, how they used their cutlery, if they knew how to have a glass of wine, and he would come away with his little black book and he would have ticked his final choices based on that last part of the interview. And Henry Ford Jr. told me quite honestly, he said, Noel, we often held that he missed out people who were much more qualified or much more capable of maybe doing the job, but yet the manners and that side that my grandfather found to be of such importance was ultimately what brought our success. So interesting. Yeah. So I carry that with me.
You've also met other notable people. I'm thinking of the story you told me about having tea in Claridge's with Rose Kennedy.
Oh my goodness, talk about...
When was that?
That was years ago. I was only a young fella in London, and I used to go to Mass in a little church in Farm Street. And now and again this lady would appear who was quite elderly at that point, and for some reason she heard my accent, maybe in responses, and she spoke to me a few times, and then if I'd see her maybe a year later or 6 months later, I'd say, oh, welcome back, and how are you? And she said, I'm very well. And she told me her name was Rose, Mrs. Rose. And I always referred to her as that because up until recent times, there are a number of people even in our own town at home that I wouldn't dream of calling by their first name. You know, it was Mrs. or Mr. That was the way it was. So she said, you must come to tea. She knew at that point that I was working with Trust House 40, that I'd been moved out near the airport because we were opening a new hotel there. And so the arrangement was made that I would go to Claridge's. And, you know, for me to go to Claridge's, you know, even I was in the trade, I was in the business, but Claridge's, home away from home for the crowned heads of Europe. I mean, it's one of the
incredibly grand.
Incredibly grand. For a young fella from Kilcar, japers. So anyway, I got dressed to the nines and off I went. I met Mrs. Rose for afternoon tea, which in itself was an experience. You know, talk about watching your P's and Q's. I had to learn the hard way. You know, it was hard. It was far from cucumber sandwiches I was reared, you know, in Kilcar. So she inquired if I was returning to the airport, and I said I was. So she said, well, I'll arrange for a car. So the concierge was duly called, and we said our goodbyes. And as we walked out, the concierge said to me, you're a very privileged young man. I said, yes, I am, to be in Claridge's. I said, it's just magnificent. And I said, if I weren't sort of rushing or going back to work, I said, I would almost ask, could I be shown around. And he said, well, I didn't mean just that. He said, you know, Mrs. Kennedy seldom hosts anyone in this hotel. And I said, oh, I wasn't with Miss Kennedy, I was with Mr. Rose. He said, yes, Rose Kennedy.
No.
Yeah.
You still hadn't a clue who she was?
Hadn't a clue. She never once let it slip. She spoke of her family, she spoke about her grandchildren, she spoke about their achievements without once alluding to the fact
that
she was a Kennedy.
Right.
Yeah, which showed a certain humility. And she loved London because her husband, of course, was the ambassador to the court of St. James. Yeah.
What's involved in putting an album together?
The way you make an album these days, I've been told, isn't what it used to be. So say, for example, like when I talk to people who were in bands in the 90s and the early 2000s, they would lock themselves away somewhere 2 months. You know, you wake up, have breakfast together, get in the studio, write something. It may work, it may not. But you go until you have an album made. Whereas nowadays, you know, like in this world where it's kind of like, you don't have a song that works on TikTok, you don't have a song that works for radio, etc., etc. I do believe that's still a thing, you know, the magic of it. When people can tell it means as much to you as it does. And the fact that it means a lot to me that I see them, you know. I'm fascinated by it. I really am. Like in Chicago, I had a dressing room that looked out to the car park. And for an hour, I just watched people pulling up and getting out of their cars because it was mad to me in downtown Chicago, a whole parking lot that was dedicated to the gig I was playing. It's just, it's like, I shy away from it because I think you can sort of sound performative quite quickly, but I just can't get my head around it. I can't say I get it right all the time. Like sometimes you have a song and it's a tiny bit intoxicating where people are like, this song could take you to here and doing this and it's a good idea and you're like, okay, why not? Like I don't live and die by it. It's a song, you know, and later on I'll do something else. There's pages on Instagram, like say fan pages that I follow and have messaged me in the past and they're kind of saying like, Dermot, what's up with this? Like this is kind of, and I'm just like, please just take it easy. It's one song. It might be a month that we're thinking about it. You know, like what about in 5 years if I do a complete acoustic album with songs that are all 8 minutes long? You can do whatever you like, you know? But I do believe, I think sometimes people can go into the music industry and talking about changing. It's like you have to be willing to adapt and change. You have to, because you can go into the music industry with your guard up and kind of think, nobody talk to me. I'm not willing to work with this person. I don't want to, which is grand and it works for some people. And honestly, I kind of admire the sort of toughness. There's so much emphasis on kind of like, you should do this. It'll be good for your career. I think it's to my detriment sometimes. I'm just like, I don't care. The only thing I need to be good at is when I'm on stage playing. And it can be confusing at the beginning because you're kind of like, oh, maybe I should change the way I am to kind of like, because I wouldn't naturally do this. But now as I get further down the line, I'm just like, no, like you don't need to. I think music's a funny one to apply that mentality to, because there are certain ways, like, you know, like musicians are famous sometimes, so like there's probably things you can do to further your career, but like I genuinely, and again I'll say, like I shy away from it because I think it can sound silly, but like when I'm on the stage, I do think I'm the one that kind of wrote the songs, I'm the one playing them, but like by no means is it like look at me kind of thing. It's purely the songs. I don't care about anything else.
I don't know when, why or where, but you could be out for a walk or something, and it's like, whew. It only happened the other day, actually. I was going out to collect the bin, and I turned around and I seen a brand new Jeep, which thank Brady's and Seat sponsored me, a brand new Jeep and a lovely house, which I actually bought myself with Rolling Stone, as in like, I have a mortgage, like, and that was a moment where I said, wow, I never thought I'd ever have this. And I looked at the 3 kids, it's like, oh my God, this is my life. This is the dream. Like, I'm actually in a dream here. And then you go back into the normal rat race of life. But it is lovely every now and again to go, Oh my God, I'm sure Dermot, he just came to my head there. Dermot Kennedy is like that as well. Sometimes soul that we're going, wow. Like, because we're all human. Like,
I know.
Today
you must have a lot of love in your life too. Like, you've talked about your mum and dad there, and you're from a big family. There's a big crowd of you, aren't there?
Well, I've only one sibling, my sister Carol, but like cousins, yeah. Like my dad has 12 brothers and sisters. Like he's 2 brothers, 9 sisters, and all. And my mum is the same. Mum has, I think, 6 siblings as well. So
there's a big clan.
Big clan, yeah. And I love my family. I'm very proud of I'm very grateful. Like the O'Connor and Daly's, they're 2 completely different people, if you want to call it, but both brilliant people, like in their own ways, like you know, and that's probably why I relate to a lot of Irish people, because I was born in Ashburn, which is a big like on the Dublin border, Meath, thank God. But a lot of big housing estates, and a lot of kind of grown up in house estates, and then I also spent a lot of summers in farms. So I feel I have a connection with Irish people, both from the city or townies to the cultures, because of my upbringing of being in the farm, having the crack with the farmers one weekend, then back in a housing estate doing housing estate stuff. Then
because your dad's background would have been farming.
Yeah, both of them,
and both your mammy as well.
Yeah. So farmers are steeped and. Yeah, as I said, like very proud. Like even I'm cousins with the Murtas, who own the Causey Farm down there, which is a massive, successful. And I'm very proud of them. And they're all a lot ADHD, and we're big fascinated about the ADHD brain. Yeah, they're all big into it, and I love conversations with them. They're geniuses, and they're so successful. But we talk about being like. My sister-in-law is big into
what's this 1111 thing?
It's like an angel number. So like, again, people call it airy fairy, and if you do that, it's grand. But I believe, and it's like anything. If a robin lands before you, some people, lovely robin, or some people take it as that's someone saying, hello. So whatever. But for me, the 1111 was something, and I was meant to be on the late, maybe a few months previous, but they pulled it because something topical. And I was like, that's my chance gone again. But that weekend I was in Sligo, and I was in a cafe, and a woman had 1111, and I said to her, what sort of tax? 1111. And she said, I'm big into it. I said, well, so am I. But the point getting to is, whenever it came, my sister-in-law sent me a photo that on the 11th of 2020, at 11:11, I was sitting on the...
No way.
Yeah, so 11 minutes past 11 on the 11th of 11, I was sitting there chatting to Ryan, and she was like, boo! Again, airy-fairy, whatever you're into. I always say, if you're into it, I'll tell you meant-to-be stories that will blow your mind. But if you're not, I won't. You know what I mean? It's like politics. If you want to talk in politics, I don't want to hear. I'm not into it. But if you are, I'll listen, type of thing. So anyway, that was one. Again, but it's all about how you take inspiration from it. If you get me, it's like
it works for you.
It gives you a bit of hope and belief. Well, then
you were brought up like most of us, going to Catholic school, the First Communion, the confirmation, God, Jesus, Mass, all of that. Where does that slot in anymore? Has that moved into a different place?
Listen, my mum's probably like, right, cut the podcast now, but I don't go to Mass. No, I don't. I'll be honest with you. For me, I don't believe I have to be good to go to Mass to be a good Catholic. I don't drag my kids to Mass on a Sunday like I would have. Not me, like we were all like, I have a memory of Mass sitting there looking around. I always remember when everyone started, my little head was right, when everyone starts to shake hand, we're nearly done. That's what that's my little head used to tell me. Whenever everyone is shaking hands, I go, lovely, we're out here soon enough. But yeah, I don't. Yes, like for me, it's about teaching them to do the right things in life, the right, like respect people. If you can help people out, help them. Don't let others dictate who you are meant to be. All, for me, core values in life. So do I need to go to Mass every Sunday? No, I don't. And that's just my belief. I'm not saying like I'm anti-church at all, but I'm just not. I don't feel like I can listen to funerals and weddings. Yeah, of course, but on Christmas maybe. But no, it's not. It never was me, to be honest with you. And I don't. Yeah, it's just.
But spirituality matters to you.
It's big time. I'm big spirituality. Like I really am. Like.
Sean O'Farrell, going back to the Celtic Tiger years, when we were accused of letting ourselves, lose the run of ourselves and getting greedy, I still remember that the best day there was when we hosted the Special Olympics. And to do that, the army of people that had to be mustered across the country, the amount of money that had to be raised across the country, the acres of generosity that had to be galvanised, and that was at the height of the Celtic Tiger. So we didn't lose the run of that, at least.
No, I think one thing about the Irish people is that they're responsive to leadership, so that if opportunities to do good is offered to them, they will avail of those opportunities. I mean, we see that every year. Take the Late Toy Show, for example. I mean, the phenomenal outpouring of generosity.
Right. The response to Ukraine.
Yeah. Yes. The response now to Palestine.
To Gaza.
And Gaza is all quite remarkable.
And all those delegations that you've described coming in, do they give you a sense of how they view Ireland? How would you summarise those views of Ireland that you'd be meeting regularly?
Developing countries' delegations would view Ireland with a certain amount of awe and would see Ireland as a country that they'd like to emulate. Sometimes the Americans, when they come here, or people from Australia or Canada, have had kind of a view of Ireland through rose-tinted glasses, that they still see us in this sort of stereotypical
John Hines
sort of situation. And it's not until they arrive on the ground here that they find that the country is quite different to what they perceived it to be. But we're lucky in that there is, so many countries out there who want to invest in Ireland. And what I say as well when I travel now is that Irish capital is mobile as well, and Irish companies are looking for opportunities to invest abroad. So when I go to Moldova or anywhere, I will say, well, look, you guys, there's a good chance that Irish developers, Irish industrialists, Irish entrepreneurs are going to be prepared to come here and invest and generate jobs for your country, wealth for Ireland. And we can help each other in that sort of way.
Relationships.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you a favourite visiting delegation or a favourite event from your 8.5 years?
Oh, that's a hard one to answer. Well, I tell you what. I thought one of the most fascinating visits I made was to Nepal. The Nepalese people are the most dignified, beautiful, intelligent, warm and friendly people you would meet. The poverty in Nepal is appalling, incredible. Do you know there are 100 languages spoken in Nepal, and there is still leprosy in that country.
Oh Lord, no.
And one of the things I've been trying to do since being there, and recently having welcomed a small delegation from Nepal to Ireland, to try and encourage Irish aid to become more actively involved in supporting them. But that was one of that was a real revelation for me. But just the people themselves, the quality, the kindness and the humanity and the decency of them was outstanding.
Stephanie, you've got wonderful awareness of your autism and how it impacts on your life and, how you live your life around your children, around your labour and delivery and all of those. It's amazing.
And other people find it really helpful. I message a lot of parents on Instagram and they think, like, there's one woman I'm thinking of in particular and her daughter is autistic. Now, she does speak to communicate, but she's been having a really, really difficult time with showering and drying herself afterwards. And her mum messaged me just to say that this was happening and did I have any ideas? And I was like, oh my God, I know exactly what's happening. I have this too. The transition of being wet and then being dry is an awful lot, and it's sensory and like you're damp and wet and it's sticky. It's awful. It's like try the hairdryer. Try to dry her with the hairdryer rather than the towel, because it's less scrapey and it just feels much better if she can tolerate the sound of it. And so I know that like what works for me works for other people, and it's really helpful for me to share those things, because there are autistic people who don't communicate with spoken word. And so having an autistic person who does can help the parents or carers of people who don't speak.
But is
like
that awareness instinctive?
No, it's like a lot of research, not research, but like
Learning,
trial and error, you know,
and living.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's why my mum says, like, I wish that we had known my struggle, like in my personal life, I haven't, like, if you're measuring success, I have difficulty. I have no problem making friends. I have a lot of difficulty keeping friends. I have, you know, crazy relationship histories of, you know, misunderstood, you know, like terrible relationships. And
could relationships break down easily because people misunderstand, or there's really
not so much romantic relationships. I haven't had a lot of those, but like friendships for sure, particularly with women. People think I'm too much. I overshare. I ask too many questions. People don't know how what autistic communication is, and so I have had multiple friendships that have ended where I'm like, what happened there?
But you also had instances of cyberbullying, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, the WhatsApp group, is that what you're referring to? Yeah.
What happened there?
So I had a group of friends that I was in school with, all growing up, and there was 9 of us, and we had a WhatsApp group of all of us, and we used to text. And then I noticed that like people weren't really responding to me in the group, and then people weren't even responding to each other in the group. I was like, this is really weird, because it was a really busy WhatsApp group. And then one day I was with one of the girls and I saw her phone light up, and there was another WhatsApp group that they were all in without me, but I wasn't. And I understand that, like, maybe maybe I was too much for them. Maybe, you know, I don't really do kind of small talk. If someone says, oh, me and Jamie broke up, other girls have responses to that I can't really, like, that wouldn't come into my head. Like, I would just say, like,
come into your head?
Why did you break up? Who broke up with who?
Instead of, oh, you poor thing.
Are you going to move out now? You know, like, what are the next steps? And so very often now, like, I'll say to my husband, what do I reply to this? I don't know what to do about this situation, because I don't know what to say. And we moved house recently, and I'm in this WhatsApp group of mothers in the estate, and also another WhatsApp group of just tenant, like, owners of the estate. And I've texted both of those groups to say, hey, just so you know, I am autistic. I miss social cues, and sometimes I say the wrong thing, and please don't ever attribute to malice what should be attributed to just a mistake.
That makes so much sense.
And people are much more gracious then. So yeah, back to your point. Yes, I have career success, but that doesn't mean, I think that very often people listening to these podcasts, TV shows, watching these interviews, everything seems so aspirational. Everyone just seems like they are one success after
another.
A straight
road to perfection.
And it wasn't. Like, you are never going to hear about some of the TV shows that I've written that have been either picked up and then dropped or gone into turnaround. The funding applications I've done, which have not been successful, you know.
How did you cope with disappointment?
Par for the course. Like, I don't get... I will always ask for feedback, like, why have I not been successful at this thing? And I'm in a battle at the moment because I have met one of the decision makers at one of the funding bodies that I'm applying to. And I've been like, why? Can you tell me why this is not successful? This is my 5th time applying. And every time I meet them, they give me more feedback. And I do the exact thing that they're asking. And then it's still not successful. They're like, we're really sorry. You know, it's judged by your peers and it's really competitive. And I'm like, yeah. But why? What is the and I remember growing up always feeling like in the world, everybody was given a script that I wasn't given. And if there's some formula of words that I need to find, and once I find the exact pattern of words, I will be understood, and it will be like the key that unlocks the next thing. And
there is no holy grail, is there?
No.
My mother, she never had makeup on till the grandchildren got up. And then they started putting on, and she liked it.
Nice.
She used to keep it on for a couple of days. She would not think of cleaning the face to get the value out of it. Yeah, you know, the things you think back on it. Yeah.
And would she be interested in clothes to the end?
She
and buying
loved
clothes?
Style. Now, she had her own style. My mother had the wee cardigan and the dress with the collar. Never, I think once maybe she got a trouser thing, but no, she wasn't a trousers person. And not long before she died, there was very few shops that had these dresses now with the wee collars and the wee cardigans. But Spears in Letterkenny, I think, still has them. It's a shop, if anybody's in Letterkenny. It's a throwback to 50 years ago. It's still the same and it's amazing. So we went out anyway and we went into Spears and we got 3 dresses and we got cardigans. And I remember saying to her, I said, God, Mommy, you'll have to live a long time now. I used to get the wear of these and when we were coming out and we got into the car, she says, God, she says, me handbag's in poor shape.
Oh, she's
so we
a
went
clever
away
woman.
down to the shop down on the Port Road or down on the Link Road, and the woman in the shop took out a few handbags to her. She wasn't great at the walking, and she eventually got the handbag. So she was going somewhere then, and Kathleen says, you know, she's on the hand. Oh no, she says, that's only for good.
For good use.
For good use. But sure, she was laid out in one of the outfits that she got that day.
But that's typical of her generation, wasn't it? Keeping things for good.
Keeping things for good, yeah. Yeah, and then all of the clothes then were given to the hospital in Dunlow. And sure, we would go up on some of them, you know, the people living there. They were good clothes, like, and you'd see them going about in the dress. And
Dunlow is where the visitor centre is now, the Daniel O'Donnell Visitor Centre.
It's not there now.
Oh, is it gone?
No, it's gone.
All right.
But it was there. It was there for a period. I knew this visitor centre was something I didn't really want to have at all.
Really?
But Pat, Nora and Anne had the buildings that they had built, and they said, you know, would you be interested? And I said, God, I don't know. He said, it might bring a few about. Well, I says, if it does, then you can have them with a hand and a heart and a half. So they opened up this visitor centre and it brought loads of people. But then the place was sold and the other people wanted to make apartments, so I got all back.
To be dusted.
Oh, for God's sake, I'm looking at it sitting in the garage.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, what the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass f- So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Emer, talent met passion. Something stirred inside you that never went away, but just grew and grew and grew. Do you think? Do you see it in your children at all? Is it there in your children?
I do, actually. I do. It's the lunacy streak. You know, it's the lunatic. You know, it's. I just saw my son do the kind of modern nativity play, and it was really funny. He milked that one line of dialogue that he had so much. I was like mortified.
Yeah, another tree is born.
Oh God! You know, it's funny. It's funny, but nobody gets there on their own. Nobody, down to my angels, who is my, you know, I call him my African American brother from another mother, Ricky Minor. You know, he's one of my angels, and all of those people, all along the way, those jurors. All of these people propelling or just telling you that it's okay to keep going, just salve your wounds, or just to say, you know what, hold the signpost and say, you're actually going in the right direction. You're fine. You're not lost. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, being aware, I suppose, for me now, I've gotten to a point where I look out for those little signposts. I think that's a very Irish thing. And I think I think we're bad fakers. And I think I keep thinking of my friend John from college, keep yourself right. Yeah. I think if you keep yourself right, people pick up on that, you know, and that's
but also
it.
You're there for other people as well, Emer. You know, having gone through what you've gone through and the different lives that you have led and the work that you have done, you're very conscious of other people and kind of carrying them along as well in the same way as other people have supported you.
Well, I think our great power, the great Irish power, if having lived in other countries and having seen Ireland from the outside as well as the inside, I think there's one trait we have as a culture that is our superpower, and I think that's empathy. I think we don't know how to turn it off, and we don't. I didn't know that was a choice. You know what? You can choose not to care about something. I don't think that's
it's not so, part of our DNA.
No, and it's so visceral for us as well. But I think that empathy, especially if you're creative, I think that's the reason why we've so many great writers and so many great filmmakers, so many great musicians, is we can tap into the human experience and empathize. I don't need to have experienced what this person over here has to empathize with them. You know, I have enough imagination, enough heart, and enough empathy to walk in their shoes, at least in my imagination, and have some sort of understanding. But that's the one thing that brings me home all the time, and and empathy can be very hard to live with as well, because you feel a lot of pain and you feel others' pain. It's very hard to sort of temper that. We all know. I mean, I'm so preaching to the choir because we all do it, but it is our superpower, I think, and I think that's I owe that to my own culture, and yeah.
My mother, she never had makeup on till the grandchildren got up. And then they started putting on, and she liked it.
Nice.
She used to keep it on for a couple of days. She would not think of cleaning the face to get the value out of it. Yeah, you know, the things you think back on it. Yeah.
And would she be interested in clothes to the end and buying clothes?
Now, she had her own style. My mother had the wee cardigan and the dress with the collar. Never, I think once maybe she got a trouser thing, but no, she wasn't a trousers person. And not long before she died, there was very few shops that had these dresses now with the wee collars and the wee cardigans. But Spears in Letterkenny, I think, still has them. It's a shop, if anybody's in Letterkenny. It's a throwback to 50 years ago. It's still the same, and it's amazing. So we went out anyway, and we went into Spears, and we got 3 dresses and we got cardigans. And I remember saying to her, I said, God, Mommy, you'll have to live a long time now. I used to get the wear out of these, and when we were coming out and we got into the car, she says, God, she says, my handbag's in poor shape.
Oh, she was a clever
woman.
woman.
So we went away down to the shop down on the Port Road, or down on the Link Road, and the woman in the shop took out a few handbags to her. She wasn't great at the walking, and she eventually got the handbag. So she was going somewhere then, and Kathleen says, you know, she says, well, oh no, she says, that's only for good.
For good use.
For good use. But sure, she was laid out in one of the outfits that she got that day.
But that's typical of her generation, wasn't it? Keeping things for good.
Keeping things for good, yeah. Yeah, and then all of the clothes then were given to the hospital in Dunlow. And sure, we would go up on some of them, you know, the people living there. They were good clothes, like, and you'd see them going about in the dress. And
Dunlow is where the visitor centre is now, the Daniel O'Donnell Visitor Centre.
It's not there now.
Oh, is it gone?
No, it's gone.
All right.
But it was there for a period. I knew this visitor centre was something I didn't really want to have at all.
Really?
But Pat, Nora and Anne had the buildings that they had built, and they said, you know, would you be interested? And I said, God, I don't know. He said, it might bring a few about. Well, I says, if it does, then you can have them with a hand and a heart and a half. So they opened up this visitor centre, and it brought loads of people. But then the place was sold,
good
and
the area.
other people wanted to make apartments, so I got all back.
To be stored.
Oh, for God's sake, I'm looking at it sitting in the garage.
Phil, I'm just thinking of the time, you know, as a teenager, when you'd be listening to the radio and watching Top of the Pops and seeing people like Sandy Shaw and Cliff Richard. And these were the people that you were working with. I mean, these were legends.
Yeah, to be part of that, to be in that Top of the Pops studio, you know, and watching one of your acts, you know, climbing up the charts, you know, the Bay City Rollers. I mean, something like the Bay City Rollers, you know, I often confronted with that, Bay City Rollers, you know, that kind of crap. Well, you know, I mean, you got to judge it. You can't compare Shang-a-Lang with The Town I Love So Well,
No.
you know.
Mhm.
I mean,
No.
what you do is the guy who wrote those two songs knows what he's doing, because that's the craft, you know. That
To be able to change that
you know,
genre.
it's a different.
Yeah,
You know,
so
you're still
successful.
applying your know-how. You know, it's a different set of challenges.
Mhm.
But that was exciting times to create something like the Bay City Rollers, which became a worldwide phenomenon. You know, there was a Sea of Tartan. In early October, they're celebrating 50 years of the Bay City Rollers. Shang-a-Lang was 50 years old, and there's one of the fans convention in Edinburgh, and I'm been invited over to it. So of course I'm going.
Have you ever worn those trousers yourself?
Oh Jesus, no.
You have to wear tartan for that.
Oh, no.
There is a line. There is a line.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to go that far down the rabbit hole now. No. But it was fun times. It was great fun. I think I had more fun than I was entitled to with all that stuff. It was great, you know, to see them go up the charts all over the place. You're number one in America, number one in Brazil, number one in Tokyo, whatever.
Do you and Geraldine still play music at home?
She tours with me when I'm on the road. She's my special guest, yeah.
She is.
Yeah. I mean, well, I used to tour with like a full orchestra. Now it became financially not viable. Then we toured with a kind of a 4-piece. But what I've evolved now is the one-man show, where I kind of play, tell the stories, and then we have a lot of footage, a lot of archive footage that we show on the screen. And then Geraldine will be one of my guests, and then there's always another second. At the moment, it's a kid from Derry called George Hutton, who's early 30s, and he's got all that it takes. Oh, he just needs that kind of exposure. He's a Derry boy, so I'm delighted to give him a shot, you know. Yeah. So that's a very tight operation now.
So the music tradition is continuing in Derry.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. Very much so. Very much so.
I believed in what I was doing. If that's what I kind of go looking for, I aggressively believe, you know, like I felt sort of, you have to have it, and whether it's justified or not, you have to be sort of delusional. I think when I think about playing to crowds that aren't necessarily my crowds, like support slots, all that kind of stuff, like it's you have to be kind of aggressive. Do you know what I mean? When you become the guy who's doing the work and on tour all the time, all that, you have to be you have to kind of remind yourself that, you know, like sometimes I say, like, you know that song Vincent by Don McLean? Like, no one cares how much he toured. They just want to hear that song. You know, it's a very powerful, like, no one cares. It's just, as long as that song is on, it feels good, you know? So, like, ultimately, I'm not trying to be like, have the most air miles. Like, I'm a musician and I want people to feel something from my music. I think nowadays that potentially comes with a lot of work. But there has to be some kind of balance. Yeah. Yep.
You've always been kind and compassionate and authentic with your audiences, Daniel. But I know that even when you go to a location before a show, you've been known to go and maybe meet people in their homes who are not well, or to visit care homes. That's part of, you know, your authenticity and your Christianity, really.
Well, I suppose what I always feel is that I think I'm very privileged. Now, this is not for me thinking I'm great, but I know I'm aware that I can make a difference. I'm aware of that. Now, I won't change the situation, but for a period, there's a lift. That's not a greatness, that's a privilege that I've been given. And all I have to do is walk in. It's not like it's taken a fortune out of me. And if that means, like, just going back to the COVID thing, when I was going around singing, and I mean, some wrote that it was I don't know what it was. It was a disgrace because they couldn't get out. The creators, it was they had to listen to me whether they wanted to or not. But like, it was something I could do. It was easy to do. And if it's something I can do, if I can go and visit somebody and it makes a difference, it won't change the situation. If somebody's sick, they're still going to be sick, you know. But for that, I can see it. And that's all I can say, is that's a privilege that I've been gifted.
Daniel, we spoke about the MBE, but you've had so many awards over the years. Is there any that particularly stands out? Do you have a favourite award?
I do. I don't need to even think about it. The Donegal Person of the
Year.
Year.
Oh, yes.
And Moya Brennan just got it this year.
Yeah.
Was your mummy alive when you got that?
She was. I was only young.
Yeah, I was thinking it must be a good while ago, yeah.
I was too young. I would like to get it again just to get the value out of it.
Out, Daniel.
But I got it in 1989. So I was only in my 20s. And it was just... I hold it, and I've been lucky, as you say, and it's not to diminish anything else, but it meant the world to me and means the world to me. And I know I know Maya feels the same, and our Margaret got it. I think we're the only 2 out of 1 house that has that award, the Donegal Person of the Year. And it's just great because it's given by the Donegal Association in Dublin, but it's because you're from Donegal. It's because you've done something for Donegal or about Donegal, or So it really is, without any hesitation, the most precious.
Your roots are being
Have
celebrated.
you recovered from Dermot Bannon being in your house?
I have. And we have the
Do you remember those?
We have the most beautiful house.
Are you happy with it now?
We love it. We love it. But like that, now, I suppose
that was a big change.
That was when people seen another side of me too, because it's not having it; it's being able to look after it, as the saying goes. Just because people has the impression that you have a load of money, you just don't throw it out in a bucket, But his vision is fantastic, and we have a lovely house, but we still have the old wardrobes. And I look at them and I go up and I think to myself, I look at them and I think, and quietly say to Dermot, now Dermot, what's wrong with them wardrobes? They're still good. But no, we love it.
There's life in them yet.
We walk down the stairs, I walk down the stairs and I think, imagine this is our house. We're blessed really to have
beautiful views and a beautiful setting.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lovely setting. Yeah, it's but too, to be able to live where you were brought up is great. Now, I obviously am travelling a lot, and maybe I'm not there. I don't know how many months a year I'll be there, but when I'm at home, and even when I'm away, I feel I'm living at home. I remember when I started out, and I was living in Dublin at this time, and if we were in Kerry or Cork, somebody would say to me, and I would be going back to Dublin after the dance at the time, they'd say to me, are you going home tonight? I said, no, I'm not. Oh, you staying about? Oh, no, I'm going to Dublin.
Yeah. Home is Donegal.
Even though I had a home in Dublin. It's like... And I don't know, is that an Irish thing? Because in America, people are from where they live.
Okay.
I find they'll tell you where they're living, but we are always from where we were born.
Roots.
You're right.
I was born here and I was brought up here.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel. You go home to plug in. It's like the electric car. You have to plug in to get the juice.
Do you know what really hurts, I suppose? That a parent will be in my company and they will say, oh, well, we would understand. And then I might be in their home for some other reason at another time. And some person who is an actor or, a TV personality who is obviously gay and they will be on screen. And the father or a brother or someone will say, oh, he seems like a nice boy. Look at that. Whatever. Yeah.
Derogatory comment.
Absolutely. And I look around that room and I think, my goodness, that young man on my right or that young girl on my left, they are at that age where perhaps the whole area of sexuality is like you asking me, Mary, about at school, my sexual awakening hadn't really begun because, that was beaten out of us too, I suppose, But in our homes, we forget that, 80% of communication is non-verbal. And then that horrible word hurtled against or by or about someone can have such a profound effect on someone else, especially if it's one of our own, that people wonder, well, why on earth did they never talk to me? I never talked to you, Daddy, because I was terrified of you. You hated gay people. You made it abundantly clear that I didn't measure up, that I didn't play football, that I didn't do all the things expected of a boy, that I was an embarrassment to you, that you were ashamed to see me coming home.
I have to say, I'm in the same situation as you are with regard to the church. I cling to it because of the consolation in believing in a God who's loving and decent and kind.
When you were a young fella, you wanted to be a vet, Sean, and I guess you're still close to the issue of animals, but do you ever regret that you didn't become a vet? You were describing earlier your daughter in the middle of, helping out with the vet, working on an animal. Do you ever regret that you didn't continue in that line?
No, because I now realise that while I love animals, veterinary work is absolutely back-breaking. And that is working with large animals, and they're the only animals I'd be interested in. And I know so many people who have had a long career in working with large animals who have had serious health problems and difficulties and suffered from a lot of stress. And for the large animal vets, it's a kind of a 24/7 job very often. And even though politics has heartbreaking, as distinct from backbreaking aspects to it, I prefer working with people in reality than I would
And I
with
suppose
animals.
given the health problems you've experienced and the arthritis and the knees and the whole lot, that was probably the right choice.
Oh, it probably was, because if I was an animal, I'd have been put down long since.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council.
Does your summer need a boost? Get ready to power up your home with Wayfair's Black Friday in July. Starting July 26th, you can get up to 80% off everything home. Save on living room updates, home decor, outdoor, and way more. Plus, flash deals you don't want to miss. And get free shipping site-wide. Shop Wayfair's Black Friday in July from July 26th through 29th. And head to wayfair.com to start shopping our lowest prices of the summer.
Wayfair, every style, every home.